Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Agency Life. Live from Amarillo, Texas, we have Steve Brown. He is the founder of ROI Online, an internet marketing agency, and he's also a fellow author of a book called The Golden Toilet. Now, if there's ever going to be a man with some stories, it's definitely going to be Steve. Welcome to the show, Steve. How are you today?
I'm excellent, Clodagh. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Now, let's start first with the agency. What was
Yeah.
going on in your life that you decided and you woke up one day and said, let's have an agency?
Yeah. So maybe you had some brain damage that day or something. But no, I had been in, worked for several companies and have always been in a business development position where I was I was someone that was good at sales, and so I was always being pigeonholed into a sales position, which was fine. I was good at it, but I would also take the initiative to work on the website side of things because, as you know, most companies are they don't know the best expectations to have of that asset, and so um, they're left somewhat vulnerable to whatever happens. And so I would take initiative and just refresh it or make sure that it had supporting content or the things that we need to do our job better or to sell better. But what I started to realize was, and that was a point in time where cold calls where you go out and interrupt people and try to trick them into buying what you do.
Hmm.
But in the meantime, I had worked on the website and I noticed that when people would go on the website and they would fill out a form or reach out to us, the odds of closing that conversation or signing them up were way higher than the interrupt um, based cold calling
Oh,
situation.
cool.
So,
How long ago was this? Give us a time
yeah,
frame.
this is so I've been eight. So this would be like 13, 14, like the 3 years from 14 years ago that I did this for a couple of companies. And so go in and refresh it, but I noticed that the leads would be really way better leads. And I was witnessing or starting to understand inbound marketing as opposed to outbound marketing or interruption based marketing. Then, right before I started the agency, I went to work for a web design firm and got to see the other side of the coin. I had been like the customer, and now I was the web design, or I was in charge of selling new accounts. But I was noticing the trend, and I was relating with these business owners that knew they needed to have some expectation of a website, but they didn't know exactly what it was.
Mm,
And so yeah, let's refresh your website or set up your first website. But the dilemma I was running into is that the designers had no connection with the business owner, nor really cared or didn't really see it from the business perspective. And so this business owner would have, here they are venturing into an area that was unknown to them with some sort of expectation because they see other companies or their competitors having a website, but then they would be turned over to a web designer after I signed them up. And that web designer wasn't looking at it from a business perspective, just from a creative
got
perspective,
it.
right?
Yeah.
And then it would be, it would go at whatever speed. That business owner would look over to me or reach out to me, hey, can you help me? Because we had developed a relationship, but I wasn't in charge. And so that was really frustrating for me,
Yeah.
frustrating
I
for.
can imagine.
So one day I realized if I was so smart, I needed to step up and start my own agency instead of sit and complain or think that this agency wasn't running the right way.
Hmm.
Then maybe I ought to put my money where my mouth is and start my own agency. But that was scary.
Yeah. What time ago was that? Like what time of
Yeah.
the time
So
frame?
so that's 2012.
Right. Okay.
ROI Online has been around since 2012. So,
So 8 years.
hmm
And do you start it on your own?
yes, yeah. So when I started, I just had one employee, and he had a better perspective, or he related with the clients a lot better, and so we we had some traction right away. and had some really good accounts. And I'm really thankful for those accounts because in a way they funded our startup, if you
Mm.
will.
Yeah. How did you get them through?
Yeah, so they my old agency, it was really important to me, the agency that I work for. In this world, people work there and then they go start their own, but they would try to take the accounts from
Yeah,
this
right.
agency, and
Yeah.
and I didn't want to do that, you know. And so when people learned that we started our own, they did approach us. And so I think for a while we did get some accounts, but it wasn't because I was poaching them. It's just that they liked they connected with me, and they weren't happy what was where how things were going where they were.
Mm.
And when I named my agency, instead of being the Steve Brown agency, I named it ROI Online because I wanted to really communicate that I understood that they have an expectation that this investment should pay off in some way.
Got it. That there should be some
Yeah,
ROI.
yeah, I should
It's
move the
not
needle
fun.
in some way. Yes,
Not just fun. There's fun,
yeah,
but also some results. How about
right.
that?
Wouldn't that be
Amazing.
nice?
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing concept. So fast forward to today, you have how many people in the business and what size and what structure do you have?
Yeah, so over the years, of course, like everyone else, our mix, if you will, our team mix we have what I call headquarters, the folks that come in here, and they're the ROI-ness. They have
Right.
the ROI vision, and then we have some great contractors that are really important parts of the team, and they bring an ROI flavor to it as well, but they're remote. And so we have remote people in Denver or Portland or Miami or Cleveland, in Fort Worth. We have a really good, strong A team as well that they're more from a business perspective. I've found that contractors in a lot of ways relate with business owners because they're running their own business.
Really? Yes, that's a very interesting way of looking at it. We're
Hmm.
going through a number of conversations recently with agency owners who are maybe had set the business up and it's all in one office, and now they're thinking about remote. First of all, they're thinking about letting their employees work from home a few
Hmm.
days a week, and then looking at remote. What sort of tips would you give to an agency owner to build the type of structure? So, remind me again how many all in?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have about 15.
Got it. Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah, a
yeah.
normal size. So, what
Mhm.
kind of things have you figured out over the last while about making that A team and the remote team work well?
Yeah, so figuring out, you know, the so the struggle for the agency owner is to find folks that will connect with your customers in a great way,
Mhm.
and that's the most important thing is the customer experience that they go through. And so they need to feel that they're understood, and they need to be having an experience where they're educated or they're learning,
Right.
and they're so the customer needs to be going through a transformation from, I think I understand what's going on, but I trust you. And then over time they go, oh, I'm starting to see what we're doing and why we're doing. And so that's a customer experience that needs to be baked in. Well, where does that come from? Well, I struggled with that, and we all do the best we can to try to hire good people, and that's, as an agency owner, you have to wear like 20 hats
Mhm. Yep.
all all in one day, and four or five of them in every hour at least. And so one of those is, how do I do a good job at finding good people? And I really I was natural in little ways, but I make these mistakes, and they're expensive mistakes. Excuse me. But I think clarifying your culture and your vision is is the key to attracting or repelling folks that wouldn't fit in or enjoy your
Right.
organization, right? So
Yeah.
the culture, really sitting and defining the culture, but more importantly, I ran across a book called Vivid Vision by Cameron Harold. And it's a great book, but when I read it, it was like, oh my gosh. So I picked the questions that I wanted to answer. And the premise of the book is, if we were to fast forward 3 years, what would your agency look like? What would your reputation be? What would your employees look like? What do your services look like? And what do your clients look like?
Amazing.
And so if you go and think about it and write that out in a story, then that's the future. It's not how we're going to do it, but what does it look like in the future? Then the folks that read that, they're they start rowing to the same point on the horizon, if you will.
Right.
And I struggled before I really got that, and I would think we're all rowing to the same point on the horizon, but we weren't. And it wasn't that people didn't want to, they thought they were going to the same place. And much like in relationships, you spend time, you date, you get together, and then there's this conversation you have at some point where you go, "What? I thought you wanted this." No, it was this. Well, I've always been heading this way. No, that's all wrong. And
Right.
that happens in an employee relationship.
Yeah. And very common in agencies as well. There's generally the agency owner who has a story similar to yours, or sort of they're actually moving away from something. You know, you
Yeah.
were in a role that you were like, I'm moving out of this. I'm going, leaving this employer. I'm leaving this company.
Mhm.
Agencies generally start for that reason, or something happens and they're going, I don't like this. I want that. And they work in that running away thing for a very long time,
Yes.
and they expect that the people that come in are also running away from something. You know, and you have this whole thing going, where are you running, guys? You know, where are
Mhm.
you all, what are you all up to? So really important. I don't care, it doesn't have to be the beginning of the year, the beginning of the quarter, it can be tomorrow. Sit
Mhm.
down with your vision. I will put the notes for that vivid vision. I'll definitely have a
Mhm.
read of that too, because that is point number one where I start with agency owners as well, is to go, where are you going?
Mhm.
Where's the island? What does it look like? What
Yeah.
kind of what kind of boat are we all on? How many crew do you need? Is it going to be a sunny climate? Are we going to Alaska? Are we going to the Bahamas? What does it look like when we get there? Because then people can, instead of run from things, row towards and use a positive energy. I'm glad you used the boating analogy too.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
It and those questions are hard to answer because you're a little insecure
Yeah.
about that.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a process. I loved it. It took me, the way I did it is first I picked the questions that I wanted to answer.
Right.
Then I looked at the body of the culture that we had and really thought about it. And then, so here's the thing that I really wanted to, if you kind of pick your pinnacle thing,
Yeah.
there's a great book called Stand for Something. It's by Brian Burkhart. And I read it recently, but it means you need to go, what is it that you believe? I believe this. And if you think about all the thought leaders that you follow or enjoy, they have that worked out. And it would seem obvious, but it's not. But at some point, you need to go, what is it that I really, really believe? And
Mm.
then write that down. And so what we believe, or what I believe, is that the entrepreneur, the small business leader, the business leader or the small business owner, they're really the true heroes of our economy. And why is that? It's that they don't have everything it takes, but they start anyway. And here they have people that come and work for them, and those people get to have a life. They get to have pay the bills for their family, or they get to send their kids to school because someone was brave enough or stupid enough to go out and start something, even though they didn't have everything it took. That's a lot of courage.
Yeah.
And so in the American economy, 98% of the businesses that exist have 20 or less employees. And that
90%.
98%.
98%.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And so that really shocked me. And then when you think that, well, 9 out of 10 startups fail. Everyone knows that. But
Mm.
did you know of the ones that don't fail, only 1 out of 40 will ever have $1 million in revenue in 1 year. So the odds of are 1 in 400
Whew,
to
they're big
even
odds.
break. Yes. And so, oh my gosh, you were crazy to start off on this journey, right?
Yeah.
So I believe they are the true heroes. And so we love those people and want to help them succeed and make it through that gauntlet.
Beautiful. So that's the vision that you have.
Mm.
Is that the big vision that you have? And what else is involved in that for your agency?
Yeah. So when you think, what is it that I believe, then it helps you answer the questions or start to think about the questions. And one way I did it was I I had one of my content people interview me, if you will, ask me, okay, so talk to me about this question. What is it that you envision? And so you get to flow
Great
instead
tip.
of type,
Great
right?
tip. Yeah.
So you flow and maybe you 2 pages of notes, but you're going to end up with one little succinct paragraph that's really communicates clearly what that particular answer is, right? And of those are your core values. You need to have three, at least three, if not five core values. Well, if you believe in that you want to support the heroes of the American economy, then that's going to impact what you say in your core values, right? So we
Absolutely.
exist. Yeah, so that's kind of the way that you start to put that together. Imagine taking your brain and dumping it out on the table.
Yeah.
There's all these thoughts, and then so you get to start to get those organized and more succinct, and just like you would do, write a blog, but
Yeah.
you do it that way.
Great tip. I love the interviews. Usually I have a exercise that I tell agency owners to take themselves away to for an afternoon and fill it out on their own. But I think the getting interviewed by someone and probably recording that as well so that you can get all the answers out is an amazing one. Thanks for that, Steve. That's really, really
Yeah,
good. So if
yeah.
we looked around the portfolio of clients that you have today, what's the actual like what type of companies do you work with? Do you have a niche or what kind of work do you do and what kind of clients do you have?
So that process was, the typical way is go, oh, we work with law firms, or
Yeah,
we're really good in this,
the
this,
niche,
uh, yeah.
agency positioning.
But the more I looked at it, when I looked at the clients in the past that we really resonated with and was a fulfilling account for us, if you start to look at what kind of people those are that you are working with, they're very progressive minded. And they're ahead of the curve. And this is the way I describe them, that, you know, they're when we start a business, if you imagine your business as a 4-speed business. And when I don't know if all of you have ever driven not an automatic, but a standard.
A gear
Yeah,
car. They're mostly gear
yeah,
cars in Australia or in
okay,
Europe, I mean.
yes.
Yeah.
So that first gear, it's just you kind of starting to get going in the right direction and starting to get momentum, a little traction and some momentum. And so in a business life, that's like, hey, I think I've got a good idea. And then we're starting to get some customers and I have a few employees. And then when you go into second gear, you're getting more of these, but you're starting to build out some systems and some processes and getting a little bit better. Then when you're getting in the third gear, you're starting to go, oh, okay, now I'm out of survivor mode and I'm starting to be in planner mode. And I'm starting to go, all right, I need to scale. What is it that I need in place to scale? And that's when that business owner looks up and goes, we really need to get our act together online now.
Yeah.
We've got these, and then they're watching other competitors that are doing it, and they go, okay, now I have an expectation of this, and I need to invest in this asset, and I need to figure out the best way to do it. Those are the best ones for us.
Right.
Okay, they're reading, they're educating,
Yeah.
and they're interested, and they're thinking forward.
Yeah. And do they resonate with your website and your brand and the information
Mm,
that you're putting out there and reach out to you and then you go through a process with them?
yeah. So, and we'll talk about the book a little bit, but the book was a result of these people, if they're reading and educating. Now, here's where the epiphany came from. We were the first agency to be certified by StoryBrand. And that's a very popular book right now, and it's a great book. And it was like the missing piece in our agency. We understand the technology and marketing automation and sales automation and campaigns, but what we struggled with getting aligned with our client and us is how to best write the content that resonates with people and their
Right.
brains. And the story brand framework is a beautiful way to do that.
Awesome. Tell us more about that. It's the first time I've heard of them.
Okay. So Donald Miller, he's an author and he's written many books, but in his journey, the light bulb came on is that this is a universal application of story. And it comes from Joseph Campbell's, um, there's a book called The Hero's Journey.
Yes.
And in short, Joseph Campbell traveled the world and studied mythic traditions through time, not just current, but through time as well. And he found that there was a common theme in every mythic story from every culture, from every time. And we meet a hero who's in the status quo, who figures out, learns from an event that the status quo is not tenable anymore. And now they have to go through a journey. And at first they resist it. And then they lean into it and they go through these failures and end up in the pit at the bottom in there. And then they have to dig down deep inside and get back up and per, um, and start to march.
Got
And
it.
what do they learn in this journey? And so realizing that when we watch a story, we get sucked in and our brains become, we're the hero in that story. In most brands and marketing's broken because marketing tries to be the hero, not realizing that the people you're wanting to attract, they want to be the hero
Okay.
and you're supposed to be the guide. So if you can make your content, communicate, I understand you, and I'm going to guide you through this challenge, and we're going to figure out where our solution can help you get what you want, is the essence.
Amazing. And so Story Brand has recognized you it
Mhm.
as an agency and as a content creator for that.
Yeah, so they have a whole list of guides,
Yeah.
folks that, so they have workshops where brands go and get excited about it, but then when they go back, this is a little harder than you thought. So they go and look at the guide directory, and those guides can come in and help a brand in whatever essence apply the story brand framework. And when I went through it 4 years ago, I told Don, I said, I don't want to just be a guide. I want our agency to be certified. And so that's how we became the first agency certified in that.
Amazing. That's we'll have to. I'm going to learn a little bit more about that.
You should.
Some of the things that I love about this podcast is
Yeah.
every episode I learn at least one new thing, if not more.
Hmm.
It's my education, my university, not education is happening right here. So speaking of books, though, you
Right.
have a great title for your book. I'm not going to say. You say what the title of your book is, and then tell us more about it and how it's benefiting your agency.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the agency owners will relate with this. But so the book's titled The Golden Toilet. Stop flushing your marketing budget into your website and build a system that really grows your business. So what does that mean? I had so many conversations with business owners. They would come in, and it all starts at the I need to redo my website doorstep. Okay, they've come to this realization. If we go back and talk about when that business owner looks up and goes, "Oh my gosh, I need to get my act together online," the best words they have are, "I need to redo my website because it's not working now."
Mm.
And they're being brainwashed by people that are calling them every day. We can get you to the top of the search, and so they know there's an expectation, but the words aren't there necessarily. So they come in and go, I needed to redo my website. They may say marketing, they may say branding, they may say sales, but all those words are like interchanged. And we would be thinking one thing, they would be thinking another. And so one day I was just one of the ways to really help move someone to a better concept is to get them to reframe their expectation of this process.
Mm-hmm.
But they were so anchored on website, website, website when it's really a business process. And so one day I was just being absurd. And one way to help be persuasive and communicate is to be somewhat visceral.
Yeah,
If
you've
it,
got
if
to
it,
get into their heads. Yeah.
so it needs to evoke an emotion. It needs to
Yep.
be like funny or like or whatever. And so I said, I think your website's just a toilet. If you were to buy a house, you wouldn't buy a house unless it had one. You wouldn't have an office unless it had one. It's very important. But when people come over to your house, where do you hang out? In your kitchen, on the patio, around the pool.
Yeah,
Okay. And that's the same thing here. The website is not the center of the universe. It's important, but it's a part of a bigger system, and it's a part of a business process. So when I call it the golden toilet, you think it's an absurdly universal, iconic representation of wasted money on something that didn't improve the functionality of it or the user experience. And you think of
brilliant.
all these websites, people poured all this money in, but it didn't improve the user experience or the functionality.
Mm-hmm. Right, and it didn't get a result.
Right. But so how do you connect that with HubSpot, or how do you connect that with StoryBrand, or how, you know, these are again great solutions, but unless I get elevate your expectation of this as a part of a business process, then I'm still going to struggle. We're still going to struggle in that relationship
Right,
of clarity. And so we believe that you need to have four things. You need to have clear messaging, you need to have marketing automation, you need to have sales automation, and then you need to have strategic campaigns that are going to go through the system that we
got
just
it.
built.
Right. Instead of starting out with a, like, I feel when I was in the agency world, it was almost like new marketing manager, we need to do a new website. And it's
Yeah.
like new year, we need a new website. Or
Hmm.
the websites, oh, it's 18 months old, we need a new website. The reasons for a new website have always been, or stereotypically being bizarre, just like for like a change, and then a lot of pressure put on that website to be the miracle. Whereas
Right.
actually, if you set up those four fantastic processes and started tweaking the website, uh, you would, you would be better off spending your money on those four things and
Yes.
tweaking an existing website rather than let's make a new website and not invest in those four processes.
So true. The, so if you think about why that initiative is triggered off, well, leadership comes in and goes, this is not what they said. We need a new website, but you remember those movies. They're like old westerns, but I call them kung fu movies. We used to watch them on Saturday, right? And so they come in
Yeah.
and their lips would be doing this, but the subtitle is what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
Or they would put the English overlay,
Yeah.
but their lips would be moving different than what they were really saying. It was always kind of funny. But that's what's happening in that conversation. They're saying we need a new website. Leadership saying we need a new website. But what if you back up and go, why are they really saying it? They're saying, I'm being I have this feeling in me that we have an expectation of this asset to really help our business processes,
Mhm.
but they don't have the right translation. And so they come to the marketing director, we need a new website. Well, the marketing director is going to do exactly that, work on a new website the best way they know how, but they're not going to end up with what leadership is really wanting. But the leadership didn't have the right words.
Right. Yeah.
So my book is addressing that. We're going to give you the words, we're going to give you the plan, expectations, and then we're going to show you some graphics so that everybody at least can be on the same page and end up with something much better than what you're going to go through.
Incredible. Really love that. And also love to hear the use of the word process. And
Mhm.
I have actually, when I was reading through the notes from your form, I always ask a question about having a big aha moment in your agency. And it seems like you had a very similar one to me too. We're not sponsored by EOS, but tell us about the time. How did you come across What
Yeah.
the Heck is EOS anyway as a book? Because I haven't heard of that one. I always have started with Traction. But
Yeah.
where were you when somebody said you got to read this book, or how did you come across it?
So here's the What the Heck is
Oh,
EOS book,
yes,
by the way.
recognize the picture
Okay.
now. Yes.
Everybody should get it. But so I was at a HubSpot. We're a platinum agency partner with HubSpot. So I was at Partner Day, and one of the breakout sessions was by an agency that was talking about their experience of implementing Traction. And that's when I got exposed to it. And I got the book and read it, but I set it down. And then eventually through the process of seeing that we needed a vision and we needed to start to figure out a better way to run the agency. There's a great book called Built to Sell.
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. And so that those things really go together, that you need to get these business systems in place. I knew I needed to write a book, but I didn't want to write a book just to write a book, and I wanted it to be my unique perspective on what's going on. So one day I'm flying to San Francisco, and I'm reading What the Heck is EOS, and I just loved it. It was short, it was clear,
Yeah.
and it's the book that you hand to your team to, and it does an explanation of why you're implementing EOS.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at the graphics, and then the light bulb went off for me. It's like, oh my gosh, we have a version of this. This is EOS, means entrepreneurial operating system.
Yeah.
But in essence, we had developed what is the business development system, or an entrepreneurial business development system, right? Those four things.
Those four things. Yeah.
And we call it a quick start.
Okay.
It's a way to quickly, in 120 days, get everyone's foundation set up, and then we'll build on that. We call it a growth stack, a business
Great.
growth stack. And then that was the day that the light bulb, that's what my book is supposed to be about. I was looking at it wrong or differently.
Got
And
it.
when I saw that, then that would make sense. This book makes sense to employees why they want to implement the system to manage the business better. Well, my book is, this is why you want to implement this business growth stack, because it's a business process, just like the EOS or HR or collections. It's not just a website, it's fitting into a business process. And that's where the epiphany of the book came from. And then I wanted it to be a little entertaining and have my personality on it,
Hmm.
obviously. So that's why I titled it The Golden Toilet.
It's certainly eye-catching and memorable, if that's for sure.
Mhm.
So now on this show, we don't always talk about the highlights. You know, you've a successful agency, you've got your book, your platinum HubSpot, but there are some mistakes that we all make in the agency. You know, I've certainly shared mine, but what you have one in particular that I'd love to hear a little bit more about, because we know that by sharing these mistakes, they help other agency owners.
Yeah. So I remind me, I have a lot of mistakes, but
It's
remind me
about the particular hire that you brought on board that
yeah. Okay.
and the
So
culture.
absolutely. So that is what triggered my search for the vivid vision.
Mm,
Okay. And so, one of the things that you take this time to hire a team and build a team, but there's this point where you need to bring another leader in to the organization other than you. If As long as you're running in the business, you're going to top out at capacity, your own intellectual
yes.
capacity. But if you want to scale, then you need to build behind you. And so brought a brought a potential leader into the team, but my vivid vision did not exist at that time.
Right.
It had some culture, but well, what I realized over time is that this person was from a bigger organization, not a small. organization like ours. And so, of course, they're going to bring in best practices or perspectives from there, but that wasn't like fitting in with the team, and the team was wanting to adopt and wanting that, we have a good positive culture, but it was super stressful and exhausting. And because of my lack of clarity on my expectations, that was really exhausting on the team. And so some people exited, some good people left the organization, or at least started the thinking process that where ROI is going is not where they wanted to go.
I see.
Okay. And so when at the end of all of that, I that's when I started, if I backed up and go, what's my responsibility? And I could have just blamed that person, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it really, I own it because my vision wasn't clear. Had I had that vision, then that person would not have been attracted, nor, or at least would have had more clarity where I want to go.
Got it. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. And there's a lot of agencies that kind of take people on board. It's so hard to get people sometimes, if you don't
Mhm,
have a proper recruitment structure. And check out one of my videos if you want to learn how to have
mhm.
an easy recruitment structure. I'm being shameless today.
Good, go.
Well, why not? But if when you work with an agencies who have struggled to find the right people, then they get someone in that's like not, there's some things that aren't working, but they
Mhm.
just keep going because they don't want to go back out into recruitment again.
Yeah.
And then it becomes this very unhealthy relationship where the person knows that they're doing certain things, but that the agency owner is stuck because they do now all these things for the agency owner, that that person goes, how am I going to hire them again? And it's like, well,
Hmm.
that's the point, mate. We're not actually going to hire that person again. We're going to sit down and do it EOS way, look at the
Hmm.
role, the responsibilities, the scorecard. We're going to
Hmm.
actually find what we need in the business. And then we're going to go out and find that person who's a good culture fit who wants to work in this organization instead of being hijacked in your own
Serious.
business, right?
Hijacked, not, and not even maliciously,
Nope.
but it is a hijacking in a
It's
way,
a,
if
yeah.
because if you're not driving or you're not clear where you're going, that's their responsibility. They're going to start going that way.
Right. Yeah. And I've
Eh,
I've seen I've seen that.
I I've experienced it. I was that
Yes.
person in previous organizations,
Yeah.
and you'd leave upset, and it's like, I don't understand, and
Yeah.
but
And some
it's
of the
because.
triggers I like to just give some agency owners, if you're going, oh, that's not me, I'm going, if your week, day, or even an afternoon is being derailed more than you would like. And I talk about derailed, you have a plan to go into the business, but you go in and there's a person in the business who has disrupted that day over something that is very minor that they should take care of themselves. And they do that repeatedly. You've got to watch out because, and if you drown tools and spend the whole day investing in this person doing this thing, if they've been with you for a long time, that is, you're hijacked.
Mhm.
Simple,
Serious.
right? And you've got to sit down and think about, would I hire them again? And your answer is no, but you're stuck because they do all these things and they've been with me
Mhm.
so long and I'm so loyal and I don't want to let
Mhm.
anyone know that I'm a bad person. All of those things, right? Forget all
Right.
of them. Would you hire them again? No. Would you
Mhm.
hire them today? No. They got you so far in the business, and it's time to sit down and have a practical chat with them. And it's time for you to go, actually, they're doing 5 roles, and I need to break it down into those 5 roles, and we need to divide them up, and be realistic about it. But yes, good to hear about that. And you have this important culture that is at the backbone of your business that obviously is giving you this success with your remote workers and your A team in the office. How do you
Mhm.
foster that, Steve?
Well, that's your number one. That's what you protect is your
Mm,
culture. So no assholes allowed. And
great motto.
so I think that if you, I always joke about this, but so what you were just talking about, you got this person and that's done all these things for and done, and realistically, and if you're honest, they've contributed a lot of great things, and you're what you're
Correct.
doing is being you're honoring their commitment. But a lot of times we we may have our expectations incorrect, which leads to us being unhappy. So what does that mean? Well, if we look at you're going to get on the bus and you're going to be on that bus until we die.
Hmm.
We don't say that, but that's what our default expectation is, but it's not true.
Mm.
And if you think about a bus ride or a train ride, you get on, you're going to some destination, but other people are getting on maybe at the same time, but they're getting off at the next destination.
Yep.
Or they may go 3 or 4 stops before they get off, and
Right.
other people are coming on those. And so I think that if you looked at this agency journey, it's the same thing, and it's okay, and it's normal, and they're
Yeah.
not bad when
Yeah.
they get to a point that they're ready for their next
Got it.
journey. Then
Yeah.
that's normal. And so if we look at it, then it gives us a little calmness, and we're not so upset.
Yes.
It feels like you broke up, but it's okay. It's just normal.
Yeah, and in the same context as well, it's if somebody in the business has been there a long time and they're not talking to you about, hey, what's next for me here?
Hmm.
They're just sitting, right?
Hmm.
You know, you're either going to be a really good individual contributor, you're going to be an expert in your role and you're going to go deep into that role and you're going to be better in that role, or you're going to manage people in the business. But if you
Hmm.
have someone who's just sitting there and just waiting for the next thing and taking on stuff and going, oh yeah, I'll do that as well, yeah, I'll do that as well, but not going, hey, where do you see me in the boat, in or on the
Hmm.
bus, you know,
Hmm.
what about next, you know, in the next year, where do you think I should be? If they're not proactively coming to you, having that conversation, you need to sit down with them and figure out where they're going to be. Because
Yeah,
if they're not, it means they're quite happy sitting there. And what are they up to and what are they doing? And what
right.
are their motivations for being in this particular business with you?
I think, in the movies where they're out in the wilderness somewhere and they're sitting and talking, and then the birds go quiet and they're still talking, and then one person goes, "Wait a minute, the birds are quiet." That, danger, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
that's the same way in an agency. When one of your people go quiet, there's
Mm,
something that you need to go dig around and see what you need to
got it.
help
Love it.
with there. You know what
That's
I
great advice.
I also think that, so we're trained for an interview to come in, answer the questions the best way I think you want to hear. Okay? So how cool would this be if they read your vivid vision? So they make a
Yep. You.
application.
Oh,
You
yep.
look
You.
at them.
Yep.
So, all right, here's your assignment. Read this vivid vision, and then when you come in, I'm not going to ask you questions. We're going to spend an hour, and you interview me.
Great.
And I believe that that would reveal a lot more. It would give you so much more insight in the way they think, what their expectations are,
Yeah.
if they even care enough to, instead
Yeah.
of how they usually. So, what
Where do you
do you
see
have any
yourself in
questions?
5 years' time?
Or they'll at the end they'll go, well, what are the benefits?
Yeah.
Or right?
When
So
am I going on holiday? Those questions are like, okay.
okay.
I have even a one tip further for you on that. Actually take that vision and transform it into a video, like a documentary or maybe a story, like you would tell the story. This is my agency and this is my vision for the business, or make it, or get the whole team to
Mm,
make a video and get that up on your website as an attractor for
mhm.
companies and for recruitment as well.
That's a great suggestion.
You are welcome. My gift to you, seeing as I'm learning so much, that you can take that one for free. So we're coming to almost the end, and I want to get into the kind of personal habits and things that you do that help you manage work-life balance. What are the kind of personal things, and how do you balance? You sound like an extremely calm, centered, grounded agency owner. Are you acting, or is that real?
No, I think if there was a complaint, it's not. I'm not hands on enough. I'm more, I would prefer to say, here's where I want to go,
Hmm.
and not tell you how to go
How do,
there.
yeah, take
Okay.
me there, but don't tell me how we're getting there.
But some team need a little more
Right.
direction. And so I think that over time they learn, they and so think about why is that? You have to have some sort of courage or at least a bit of courageous initiative to throw a suggestion out there. And you're putting yourself at risk that I would violate that trust and slam that down and make that person like real timid.
Mm,
But it takes time for people to kind of grow into that and know that they're safe doing that. I really expect it because they have perspectives and
yeah.
insights that I don't, and I'm not supposed to have those. But those that helps me, I think, or at least I need to communicate that, or at least that, and then continually talking or drawing a picture about what the next step is or what the expectation is, and let those details come in. So I've had to learn to be a better communicator, or
Right.
that's our number one imperative anyway as a leader. Is That's the hardest thing to get right, is to clearly communicate.
Yeah, we think everyone's got a crystal ball around
Hmm.
us because, well, they know us, and I've said it once.
Right, once.
There
The
you
other
go.
thing, I think that to understand that not everybody looks at, so in my book I talk about, as a business owner, we look at the world differently. There's a
We
quote
do.
by George Bernard Shaw, is that the unreasonable person forms the world to them. So therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable person, not being unreasonable personality, but just not accepting the status quo, questioning the status quo. But if you expect all the people that work for you to do the same, then that's an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah.
So to recognize that and not be bothered or annoyed that they look at things differently is a huge thing that helps you have a
Yeah.
work-life balance.
Number one thing I recognized when I came out 3 years ago, but started working, when I left HubSpot and started working as a business coach for agencies, it was the number one thing. It was the differences between the entrepreneurial mindset and the employee's mindset,
Hmm.
and the bumps, and how to iron those out and to go, it's okay. The big thing that entrepreneurs forget is that the employees do not need them. The
Right.
employees can go out and get any type of job they want. The entrepreneur, not so much.
Hmm.
They could get a job, but could they keep a job? That's another thing,
No.
right?
No.
So
Yes.
when you figured out that, oh, hang on, instead of me going, oh my God, these employees are driving me mad, hang on, what is life like without them? And understanding how to work together. It's the number one thing, the mindset, the personalities, and working together. I think, well, that's my big tip for agency owners, is to figure out what you're good at and figure out
Mm.
what your team's good at and work together. You obviously would have a tip for agencies that we could share as we come to the conclusion and wrap up this show. What would be you've given us who the heck, what the heck is EOS? We
Hmm.
have your book, we have the
Hmm.
Vision
Vivid
book,
vision.
Vivid Vision
Yes.
book. What would you recommend that agency owners, that would help them in their business, whether they're starting out or they need a bit of a refresh?
So I got this scholarship from Goldman Sachs, and I got to attend a course called it's Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. And so I'm sitting, like 400 businesses applied, right? And you need to be
Wow.
at some stage. And so 40 of us were able to go. And so I go and travel there, and I'm sitting in that room, and I don't know, it was like therapy, because all of a sudden I'm not crazy because they're all experiencing the same thing I do.
Hmm.
And as a agency owner or a business owner, you're really by yourself, and you don't realize it, but you desire to bounce things off of people that have experienced what you do. But your team is not that team. They're it's not capable, not that they're just not in that mindset, haven't gone through the trauma that you have,
Yeah.
if you will. So,
Put
so
nicely.
I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden it became apparent to me that that I'm normal, and what I'm experiencing is normal, and that other people go through it as well. So my tip would be to figure out a group of those to hang out with. It's very therapeutic. It it's empowering to get perspectives from people who've gone through the same
Yeah,
battles that you have.
definitely. You cannot do it on your own.
Mm.
Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today. Thank
This
you
has been
so
great.
much for oh, you're welcome. Thank you so
It's
much for sharing.
therapeutic.
Oh, good. That's why I'm on a couch. I used to be standing up, and then the last few episodes, I'm like, sit down, chill, have a cup of
Yeah.
tea, like have the chat. So good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Steve. Where would people find you? Where's the best way to find you online if they would love to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So we're at roionline.com. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn. You
Yep,
can find me
that's how
there.
I found you.
And then I really encourage everyone to get the book. Now, of course, I would say that, but I'm telling you, if you read the book, then this is a tool that you can give to your potential clients
Mhm.
that can help you align and go faster and be more successful. But I really encourage people to go to Amazon and get the book, thegoldentoilet.com. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, that wraps it up for another episode of Agency Life. I'll be back here on the couch next week chatting to
Hey,
doing therapy sessions with agency owners. Maybe that's the new tagline for the podcast.
serious.
Thanks a million, Steve. See you all soon.
Thank you so much for having me.